There was a man who felt everything too deeply. Every word that was spoken to him lingered like a shadow. Anger, fear, joy, or sadness, each emotion swept over him like waves against fragile glass. One day, a simple insult at work shattered his calm, and he reacted without thinking. By the time he realized what he had done, it was too late. He had handed his control, his dignity, and his power over to someone else, simply because he had allowed his emotion to rule him. This is the trap that almost everyone falls into. We think feelings are ours, but when they drive our actions without awareness, we are prisoners of our own minds. Learning to observe the surge of emotion before it explodes is the first step toward true freedom. Because the moment you pause, even for a heartbeat, you begin to reclaim control that the world has been quietly taking from you. Imagine the same man, days later, sitting alone in a quiet room. He begins to notice the rhythm of his own breathing, the tiny tension in his shoulders, the way anger starts as a tight coil in his stomach before rising to his chest. For the first time, he does not react. He watches, he listens. The insult, the betrayal, the fear, they are all there, vivid and intense, but they no longer control him. Instead of acting on impulse, he allows the wave to pass through him. In that moment, he discovers a strange and unfamiliar power, the ability to choose his response. That choice, once surrendered, had been stolen countless times by people, by circumstances, by the invisible weight of society. And yet now, with nothing but awareness, he feels lighter, sharper, more present than ever before. This is the paradox of emotional mastery. The more deeply you feel, the stronger you become, but only if you learn to direct those feelings rather than be swept away by them. As he walks through the streets later that evening, he notices small things he never saw before. The impatience of a driver in traffic, the slight hesitation in a stranger's voice, the tremor of worry hidden behind a smile. Previously, these details would have irritated him, provoked him, or distracted him from his own path. Now he sees them clearly, without judgment, without reaction. The world is still chaotic, full of triggers and challenges, yet he moves through it as if he is untouchable. Not because he is stronger than others, but because he understands the true nature of emotion, that it is neither good nor bad, neither friend nor enemy. It is simply energy, and energy can be observed, managed, and directed. When you learn this, the world begins to move differently around you. People's attempts to provoke you lose their effect. Situations that would have felt overwhelming become manageable, and you realize that power does not come from controlling others. It comes from mastering yourself. Later, he recalls a memory from years ago, a time when jealousy had blinded him, when fear had frozen his actions, when anger had burned bridges he wished he could rebuild. He remembers how small moments of loss felt catastrophic because he had surrendered to his emotions. Now he understands that those moments were not failures, but lessons. Each emotion contains a message if you are willing to see it, a signal to guide your next action instead of forcing a reaction. And so, he begins to treat every feeling as a teacher rather than a tyrant. He watches the jealousy, nods to the fear, acknowledges the anger, and does nothing immediately.
It means the world to me.
In the stillness, he finds clarity, and clarity, he realizes, is the true antidote to chaos. The man notices how society trains people to react. Advertisements provoke desire. News stories provoke outrage. Conversations provoke envy and comparison. The world thrives on emotional responses because when you react without thinking, you are easier to predict, easier to influence. But what if you stopped playing by those rules? What if, instead of being baited, you watched and chose? The very act of refusing to react in the expected way shifts power. People notice. Situations change. Your mind, once a battlefield for every stimulus, becomes a sanctuary. You are no longer a slave to circumstance. You are a conscious observer in a world full of unconscious chaos.
One afternoon, he meets a friend who is quick to anger, quick to despair, quick to celebrate without reason. Watching this friend, he realizes how much energy the world wastes chasing feelings it cannot control. Each outburst, each reaction, each emotional surrender is a small theft from life's richness. And yet, most people do not see it. They live trapped in their own emotional storms, believing every wave is truth. The man feels gratitude for his own calm, knowing that the quiet mastery of emotion is invisible, but infinitely powerful. It is not about appearing strong to others. It is about being strong within yourself, even when nobody watches.
He begins practicing small exercises. When someone cuts him off in traffic, instead of cursing, he breathes deeply and notices the heat rise in his chest. When a colleague criticizes him unfairly, he lets the words fall like leaves from a tree, observing but not clinging. When loneliness gnaws at night, he sits with it, acknowledging the ache without judgment. Each moment of conscious control is a victory. The more he practices, the more natural it becomes. Emotions no longer surprise him. They arrive, perform their role, and depart. In their place, he finds calm, clarity, and power. He reflects on relationships, on love and loss, on envy and desire. In the past, emotions dictated his choices, led him to cling too tightly, to push too hard, to misunderstand others. Now he sees a different way. He allows himself to feel, yes, but not to be carried away. He listens to the heart without surrendering reason. The people around him notice the change. He is present without attachment, attentive without losing himself. And slowly, the world responds differently, more respectfully, more openly, because his reactions are measured, intentional, and controlled. This is the subtle but profound power of emotional mastery. At night, he sits in silence and watches the mind replay the day. Old patterns emerge, impulses to respond, urges to act, flashes of irritation. But instead of acting, he smiles inwardly. Each urge is a reminder of progress, a signal that he is learning. He begins to understand a deep truth. Mastery over emotion does not mean absence of feeling. It does not mean hardness or coldness. It means awareness, presence, and choice. The fire inside can warm, illuminate, and guide, but it will no longer burn him or those around him by accident. He recalls a confrontation from years before, one that once would have left him humiliated or enraged. Now he remembers it not with pain, but with clarity. He sees how the other person tried to provoke him, to exploit his reactions, and he realizes that in that moment, power was always available. He just had not yet claimed it. Awareness of emotion is like a key. Without it, every feeling is a lock on your freedom. With it, every wave can be surfed, every storm navigated. Control is not a gift others give you. It is claimed, quietly, deliberately, every single day. Morning comes. comes, and with it, the subtle tests of the world. A rude comment online, an impatient driver, a petty argument. Each is a spark meant to ignite your fire. He notices the moment of choice, to react impulsively or to observe. And for the first time, he chooses observation. Each choice strengthens him, reinforces a habit, and slowly rewires his mind. The world still hums with chaos and unpredictability, but he is no longer trapped in its rhythm. Instead, he dances to his own.
He thinks about fear, the most primal of emotions. Fear used to dictate his decisions, shrink his world, and limit his ambition. But now he leans into fear. He studies it, he dissects it. And when fear arises, he does not panic, he listens. He finds that fear is not an enemy, it is a messenger. When interpreted carefully, it points the way forward. Mastering fear does not remove danger, but it removes helplessness. And that alone changes everything.
Anger, too, is no longer a tyrant. Once, a heated word could ignite days of conflict, leaving scars that lasted far longer than the moment itself. Now he feels the heat rise, notes its presence, and allows it to flow without action. Anger becomes information, a signal to set boundaries, to assert what matters, to recognize violation, not a weapon against himself or others. Each moment of measured anger builds authority, self-respect, and clarity. He turns his attention to joy and gratitude. He realizes that emotion can uplift as much as it can destroy. The same awareness that tames fear and anger allows happiness to be fully felt without the need for external validation or fleeting attachment. Joy is richer when observed, celebrated internally, and acknowledged consciously. The mind that can sit with all emotions, dark or light, without being ruled by them, experiences life fully without being consumed.
He recalls moments of envy and comparison, emotions that once poisoned his relationships. By observing these feelings without judgment, he begins to understand their source: desire, insecurity, and the illusion of scarcity. The realization is freeing. Envy is no longer a chain, but a signal. It points to what matters, where effort can be directed, and what can be released. Awareness transforms even the most destructive emotions into guides for growth. Relationships change. Friends and colleagues notice his calm presence, his deliberate responses, his refusal to be baited. They sense strength without threat, power without arrogance, and confidence without ego. Emotional mastery does not need to be broadcast. Its impact is subtle, yet profound. Every interaction becomes more intentional, less reactive. He moves through life like a quietly flowing river, shaping the world by presence rather than force. He remembers the moments of past regret, the arguments, the missteps, the lost opportunities. They do not sting as before. Each memory is a lesson, a story of what happens when emotion runs unchecked. He forgives himself, not to erase the past, but to reclaim power over the present. The past no longer dictates his choices. Awareness of emotion allows him to carry lessons forward without burden. Even mundane moments carry significance. Waiting in line, walking in silence, listening to music. He notices sensations, thoughts, and impulses with clarity. Small victories accumulate. The ability to remain calm in minor irritations translates to resilience in major challenges. Emotional mastery is not a single act, but a continuous practice, a quiet discipline that becomes stronger with repetition. He reflects on the people he once envied or feared. Observing them from a distance,
He realizes how much power they had wielded over him, not because they were stronger, but because he had given it away through reaction. Awareness strips that power. He now moves unshaken, unprovoked, free from the manipulations of others. Emotional mastery is the ultimate armor, invisible, unassailable, and lasting.
Finally, he sits in silence at the close of the day, the weight of the world still present, but no longer oppressive. He understands that emotion is neither friend nor enemy. It is energy, neutral and potent, waiting for direction. To master it is not to suppress it, but to become its guide. The man smiles softly, knowing that life has not changed, but he has. Where once he was controlled, now he stands free. Where once he reacted, now he chooses. Emotion is a weapon, yes, but only for those who surrender. For those who watch, breathe, and act deliberately, it becomes the greatest ally.